Hello and welcome to today's episode, in which I try out an idea I've had for some delicious little cookies that are going to use both custard powder and jam. For the last 3 weeks I've been taken down by a pretty nasty respiratory infection, so I've been like 80% goo. So I spent 2 weeks in bed, and then this last week I've been slowly trying to get back into life. The YouTube algorithm is no doubt furious with me because I haven't been making my weekly sacrifices to it. So I've decided I need to get in the kitchen and, produce some content. I can't fully remember how this idea came to me last night when I was watching TV. What was I watching? Ted Lasso. And somehow the thought came to me of, oh, I've got custard powder in the cupboard. I wonder if I could use that to make cookies. I got this tub of Bird's custard powder for Christmas. I had an idea for a dessert and just never ended up doing it. I'm not a big custard eater, if I'm honest. I'm not a huge dessert eater, whereas you'd have custard over the top of like a sticky toffee pudding, for example. My thinking was you would take some of this, add it to milk, and then you've got custard. So I thought, I'm going to find a sugar cookie recipe, something dead basic, and substitute the sugar in the recipe with the custard powder. I've just opened it and tasted it and looked at the ingredients like, oh, it doesn't have any sugar in it. So this is cornstarch, flavourings and a bit of colour. There is sweetness to it though, so I assume there's some sort of sugar thing in there. So what in my head was super easy has now needed me to focus for a few minutes and think, how am I going to do this? For the American viewers, if you're not 100% sure what custard is, it's a bit like a creme anglaise kind of thing, but thicker. So it's something you'd, especially in school dinners, when you have lunch provided by the school. When I was a kid, you used to get like a little square of a steamed pudding or chocolate cake or whatever, and you'd have loads of custard over the top of it. When you're making things like cookies and cakes, I know you can add cornstarch, like substitute some of the flour for cornstarch, and it makes them more tender because there's not as much gluten, because you're taking some of the gluten away from the recipe. So in my head, at least, it is still going to work, and I think they'll be quite delicate, soft, not soft, that's not the right texture. They won't be crunchy. They'll be more like a very delicate shortbread. Today's recipe is very much going to be one of those where multiple things could go wrong because I don't have any vegan butter. I've only got margarine. Now, it's not ideal to substitute margarine butter, but I think it's worth a go. I'm going to use a sugar cookie recipe that I've got in the Fanny Farmer baking book. I think I got the chocolate chip oatmeal cookies from this one. What I'm also going to do is, once I've shaped the cookies on the tray, I'm going to make a little divot in there and put a blob of jam, because I'm hoping that as the cookie bakes, the jam will spread out a little bit, but then start going harder, so it'll go like kind of chewy, because I think that's going to be a really good flavour. And we can kid ourselves that it's got one of our 5 a day and win. So we need 227 grams of the margarine, which is 1 cup or 2 sticks. I'm going to go in with the cake mixer and just try and get it a little bit fluffy. So it's not gone super fluffy or anything, but I think that's fine. I've got half a cup of golden caster sugar, 105 grams. Just gonna scrape the sides down just to make sure everything's getting blended in. Then I think I'll add the custard powder. So that's like 150 grams. So that's the powder. It's a very fluffy. I am gonna sieve this in just so I don't get any lumps anywhere. Back in with the mixer. In my little dish here, I've made up 2 flax eggs. When you're replacing eggs in vegan baking, to do a flax or a chia seed egg, you do 1 tablespoon of ground seeds to 3 tablespoons of hot water. So I've done 3 tablespoons of ground golden flax seeds and 6 tablespoons of hot water, and then just mixed it together. So I did this half an hour ago, something like that, but it happens pretty quickly. I need to add salt and vanilla extract to the cookie dough. So I think I'll add it into here, and then I can mix this in to the main mixture. The original recipe says a teaspoon of salt. That sounds like a lot. I'm going to do 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. Then I'm going to do a tablespoon of vanilla extract. So I'll work that in gently. I might add it in bits as the beaters are going. I'm having to use self-raising flour in this one because that's what I've got. I don't have any plain flour. The recipe says to add baking soda, so I don't think it's going to have any negative impact. I don't know if I'm still umming and ahhing whether to add that baking soda. I'm going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda, and if they get too puffy, then we'll know you don't need to do that. I think I'm going to add half the flour, beat it in, and then add the other half. So that was 3 cups of self-raising flour, or 485 grams. Right, I'm just going to scrape the sides down. I'm just going to have a little try. Do I want more sugar? No, I think that's actually okay, because I am going to put the jam on there, which is obviously sweet. So I think that should be all right. I'm just going to see if that's going to hold a shape, which I think it will. I'm going to chill the dough for about half an hour, which will give me a nice amount of time to clear up the destruction and powder. I've just nearly fallen 3 times because the floor's so slick with the custard powder. It's just 0 friction. According to the recipe, it'll bake for 5 to 8 minutes. I might conservatively say 10 minutes because for whatever reason, the author of this book loves tiny cookies. Like, their recommendation is to do a teaspoon. I'll be here all day and I've got better things to do, quite frankly. More important things to read. So, you know, I'd rather be reading in bed, nice and curled up, instead of just sitting here with a teaspoon. Cookie dough's been chilling for about half an hour, so it's time to shape the first batch. I'm going to take some of the mixture out and put it in a... Hello, Bam Bam. What is it, sir? What do you need? Hello. It's a little bit warm in the kitchen, and now that I've got the oven preheating, it's going to get hotter. So I'm going to take some of the mixture out into a separate bowl, leave the remainder in the fridge. Got a glass for flattening, and then I've got a little shot glass. It's got like an oval shaped base, and I'll use that to put the jam divot in, hopefully. And I'm going to fill them with seedless raspberry jam. I prefer seedless just because I don't get them stuck in my teeth, but use whatever jam you like. All right, so I've taken my tablespoon's worth. I'm just going to roll it roughly into a ball because I'm assuming these are going to spread. So if I maybe do 3 per row, I'm going to try doing it without wetting the glass. Well, that didn't work. And then I'm just rubbing the glass with a little bit of water. Smush that down. I didn't account for the non-stick properties of the non-stick baking liners. So I think maybe just do it by hand. So put it on, flatten it down. And then I've just stabbed my thumb in. Hopefully you can see that. Then go in with my jam. So I'm going to do like probably 1/4 teaspoon. I just don't want it to flood over and create lots of problems. So what I'm going to do is put this first tray on the middle shelf, and then the next tray will go on top of that, and then I'll start rotating things like that. I'm going to work towards 8 minutes, and I'll check them after 4, and I might have to spin the tray around if I can see places that are getting darker. First tray of cookies is filled, ready to be thrown in the oven. Well, delicately placed in the oven. Once each batch is done, I'll pull them out, slide the sheet onto a cooling rack and just let them cool, and then we'll come back and do some eating. Little jammy custard cookies are all baked, looking very tasty. Do a little close up this way. So they're quite crisp, and the jam has done what I hoped it would, which is kind of set and dry out a little bit. So we'll taste one, and then I can get that out of the way because I'm overexcited. And I'll talk you through a couple of bits. It's reminded me of something from childhood. And I can't think what it is, like something from a bakery. I'm very glad I cut the salt back because I can just taste it. So at this amount, it's perfect. If I'd have put the full teaspoon in, it would have been too much. It needs the jam, otherwise it wouldn't be sweet enough. There's sweetness to it, but it's not sugary sweet. But when with the jam, it's perfect amount. I think if I'd have done a full cup of sugar, which is what the recipe stated, it just wouldn't, it'd be overwhelmingly sugary, but in combination, spot on. Texture is crisp, but as you start chewing, it breaks down really quickly. I think that would make quite a nice pastry like a tart casing, because they haven't spread at all. So it's predictable, you know what it's going to do. Yeah, I'll experiment more with that in the future at some point. To say that was just a random idea I decided to play around with. It's worked quite well. I think I forgot to tell you the oven temperature. So it's 160 degrees C, which is 325 Fahrenheit. I started off by doing one tray in the middle with the intent of putting another one on top. I checked them after 4 minutes and I could tell they were going to need at least 12 minutes per tray. And then by the time I'd shaped and filled one tray, it was like there was a minute and a half left. So I just did it one tray at a time rather than scrambling and getting a bit worked up. I think that was one of the first batch. The jam it didn't melt fully. It didn't puddle and pool the way I thought it would. So then this was the last batch. So after I put the jam on, I kind of smushed it down with a finger just to spread it out. And that's gone firmer, which is exactly what I wanted, because I don't want them to stick to each other when I put them in the storage tub. Mine's a fan oven. If yours isn't, you need to go 20 degrees higher. So you want to go 180, which I think is 350. But because mine's got the fan in there, it moves the hot air around, so it's more efficient. Is it worth going out and buying a tub of custard powder specifically to make it? Probably not, if I'm honest, because you could get there with cornstarch, in the UK corn flour, and just vanilla, because that's all that this is really. If you've got a tub of the custard powder, it's worth playing around with. It's very nice. I just don't know if it's specifically worth going out spending money on something that you could do much cheaper by just buying a bag of cornstarch. They're pretty tasty as is, but I reckon it'd be nice to start putting some texture in there as well. So maybe flaked almonds or chopped hazelnuts or chopped macadamias. Just something to give an extra little bit of interest. In terms of using the margarine instead of butter, doesn't seem to have caused any problems at all. They've got a nice kind of buttery flavour. It hasn't just spread and melted. So I think that's, at least in this recipe, it's a very worthy sub, and it's much cheaper. I often use the Flora plant butter, like vegan butter. So that is 200 grams. The block is 200 grams, £1.75. Whereas the Vitalite is 500 grams for £2.25. Much cheaper. It's not going to work in every recipe, so you know, if you do try and substitute something and it fails, I did warn you. As long as your base ingredients aren't super expensive, just experiment, try different things out, and then if it fails, you know for next time. But if you are using really expensive nuts or whatever, that kind of thing, just be mindful, it might not work exactly how you think it's gonna. I'm not sure if custard powder is going to be a thing in the States, so I've been wondering what American viewers could try if they've got something in the cupboards. And I'm wondering maybe like instant pudding mixture. For the British viewers, pudding in America is what you'd call Angel Delight over here. You know, it's like a powder that you mix with milk and it's like a really thick custard. That is what Americans call pudding. I guess as long as there's no gelatin in the mixture, it should work in a fairly similar way. So just read the ingredients. I'm going to say hi and a great big thank you to my community over on Patreon. Getting their membership dues every month really does help keep me ticking along buying ingredients, especially when I am ill and can't produce anything. Knowing they've still got my back is a really lovely thing to have. I'll link to my Patreon down in the description. There's different tiers, so pick whatever feels affordable for you. It's just a great way of showing your favourite creators a little bit of financial appreciation. If you're on the hunt for lots more plant-based recipes and explorations of turning random things into cookies, like this video and subscribe to the channel. Tap the bell icon and you'll get an alert as soon as I publish a new one. While you're waiting for the next one, have a look at this.